This is a video on a curriculum of courses. Each course is an intellectual tool or set of intellectual tools. I'm going to run through the whole 16 courses first, and then I'll come back and hit some high points up. First is structural cognition tools. Basically, this is reading and hearing the structure of points rather than the meaning of points, and writing and speaking the structure of points rather than just the meaning of points alone. And it's applying operations to those structurings of points rather than applying operations to just single points. Number 2 is 12 fundamental cognitive schools that intelligence depends on and that high standard test scores depend on, but that for some reason schools don't bother teaching at all. One of the main ones is idea factoring, removing an idea or association shared by two other ideas. And so you pull the common idea out, leaving what's unique and distinguishing the two ideas, or the three. The same way you could have 3, 12, and 21, and pull 3 out of that, and give 1, 4, and 7. That's numeric factoring, but this is idea factoring, where you pull an idea out and leave more unique ideas left. The second skill there is, out of the 12, is cognitive list limits. Finding the habitual number of alternatives that you unconsciously and effortlessly generate when asked, where could we eat tonight? How could we solve this problem? Who should we call? And people and groups vary from an average of a little bit over 3 to an average of 12. The highest I've ever measured in a group was 11 point something, which I rounded off to 12. There are tools for expanding this, and because there's evidence that groups that have a larger cognitive list limit, because they habitually generate more alternatives, they expose themselves to more variety in that larger list of alternatives. And they end up having slightly higher quality outcomes when they look through alternatives and evaluate. The third idea is naming. Naming points well. And there's 8 or so dimensions of a good name. 2 of the dimensions, which is enough to get beginners started, is naming a point representationally well, so that all the ideas and operations shared by its subpoints are in the name. So the name has everything that's shared by all of its subcomponents or subparts. And then naming well relationally means so that a name is unique and obviously immediately unique compared to everything on the same level as it, that it must be distinguished from. Anyway, those are 3 out of 12 basic fundamental cognitive skills, essential for all intelligent action, that are totally untrained in courses in schools. I teach them. I have a course on them. Number 3, communication and persuasion skills. And this started out as a few little tricks by Cialdini on persuasion. But they turned out to, though all those Cialdini effects are real, they're not very strong, and they're easily overridden by random environmental conditions. And so stronger persuasion skills come from 2 sources. One of them is from the neural net's modular structure of the brain. We have a lot of social modules, a lot of emotional modules that set the context unconsciously for what are conceptual modules. And so if you feed those modules what they're looking for, you persuade people. And if you don't feed them what they're looking for, then your conceptual brain simply thinks about something and then forgets it. Number 4 is communication tricks of experts. And this is really some research that has found that you have to signal the structure of the points you are communicating to someone, because 90% of the meaning of a point is the layers of structure it's in that form the context of what it means. And so the structural configuration around a point is 90% of its meanings. The words of the point is only 10% of its meaning. And so signaling structure and having signal sentences in your paragraphs, or whether spoken or written, should be about 1 out of every 6 sentences, one in spoken or written language, should be a signal sentence which does nothing except explain the structure of the points just presented, or explain the structure of the points that are now common. Most people don't know about signal sentences. They don't do nearly enough of it, and therefore communication mistakes occur. People think they told someone to do 3 things, but the person actually only heard 2 of them, or something like that. Number 5, there are causality in our world is statistical. And our brains consistently, naturally, automatically misread probabilistic situations in 180 ways, most of which were uncovered by Kahneman and Tversky's Nobel Prize-winning research. Knowing these mind flaws and then countering them when you craft messages or policies or laws is all the difference between effective stuff and totally ineffective stuff. Number 6. Effectiveness is not enough in life. The puzzle in workplaces, the hardest problems to solve in workplaces are people problems. And what are the people problems that are the hardest to solve? It's people who are terribly effective but in counterproductive ways, in ways that undo the value of the effectiveness to the side effects of the way they are effective. And that turns out to be uneducated people, people who lack any one or more of the 64 capabilities of highly educated people. By lacking educatedness capabilities, they create later side effects that undo the good results of their effective actions. So you need highly educated and effective people at work in order for their immediate effectiveness not to be eroded by side effects of the uneducated way in which they wield effective methods. Number 7, culture powers. Knowing the powers of culture, and then having yourself the power to handle and create cultures. This is extremely vital because the vast majority of the ways that we have of reacting and doing things are unconscious to us and are heavily practiced routines that we weren't aware we were practicing, and we certainly weren't aware of alternative routines to the ones we practiced. And since the routines we practiced are effortless and automatic and unconscious, they're easy for us, and we like them. We prefer them because any routine, even if it's better, that's new, would require laborious conscious attention, deliberate practice, and for lots of it until it became automatic and as effortless as our old routines were. And so there's this bribe of ease that makes us prefer even bad existing routines to better routines that are new to us, so that many of us, our whole lives, end up with 50-year-old bodies and 12-year-old routines because the 12-year-old routines are so easy and automatic in us that they've always successfully bribed us not to go through the effort of replacing them with better routines. And culture is like that. Number 8, systems effects. Peter Senge had a best-selling book from MIT using the J. Forrester School, which is really out of date on systems modeling. And he had 11 system effects that he trained managers of it on at MIT. Well, I knew that was ridiculous, and the whole book was ridiculous. And so I went to product development managers at 12 companies and asked them what are the nonlinear system effects that affect them, and I asked them some tricky questions too that I knew would be related. So I asked them, how do you decide to promote somebody to product manager position? When you look at all the people who directly report to you, which of them are you thinking maybe I'll be able to promote him to my position someday because I trust him to handle this job? And which of them do you not? What is the criteria you look at when you decide on that promotion? And about half of them said these system effects, the ability to know and spot all of these nonlinear, delayed, other size scale system effects, other place system effects, and social system effects, political system effects, the ability to spot and anticipate and handle them. And that's what gave them the confidence to turn over the role to somebody else. And that the companies don't train people in these 256 system effects at all. They train people in about 30 of them. Senge trains people in 11 of them. My product managers know and wrote down in their questionnaires 256 of them. And I've organized them so they're easy to learn and remember, and in a checklist format. Number 8, model-based cognition. This is taking all the inputs of your life and having time every week, and I don't think it can be monthly, it has to be weekly, time every week where you turn those inputs into models and then file them away for later use. And if you don't do that, then you have this illusion from schools that I'm taking this input, it's going into my brain, and then I'll be able to use it because it's in my brain somewhere. And it just gets lost in your brain. It doesn't get used. And you think all these insights are going to be used someday. They're not. They're lost. And people around you can see that you're not affected by them because they gave you a book a year ago. You told them you were excited about it. They look at your behavior a year later, absolutely no effect of that book going on. Especially maybe they even had some behavior in mind that they wanted you to change. That's why they gave you the book. And they look a year later and it's no impact at all. We see husbands and wives doing this all the time and then getting pissed off a year later that it had absolutely no effect. So putting it in your brain is an illusion that you're going to use it later that schools gave us, and it's just crap. It shows that schools are based on an idea of the brain that's totally out of reality. Structural meetings, teams, and discussions. And this is really about scientific rules of order, democratic rules of order replacing normal meetings. And this is about stratified responding replacing normal discussions. And this is really my 5 new interfaces, 5 new cognitive interfaces stuff. It simply says that the bottom micro level of organization in all of their organizations, what the kind of stuff that goes on every 10 minutes and during the day of meetings and discussions, that is totally unstructured and very frustrating to people, very ineffective, and it ends up occupying 2/3 of their day in junk. It's a waste of time. And when they work on their own, they structure their own thinking and meeting with themselves much better. And then when they get with other people, nobody can agree on anything, so there's no structure, and just anybody says what they want, or everybody follows the narrow, biased, limited idea of the top monkey in the room. And so 90% of real issues never get talked about at all. So we need semi-structured meetings, teams, and discussions. And I've got a whole curriculum on that. Number 11, effective language without grammar. If I communicate to you effectively, I don't need any grammar. So I may not know French, but I can communicate effectively in French by naming my point in French, and by telling you how many points I have in French, and by telling you what I want you to do as a result of the point I'm giving you in French. But I don't need grammar and sentences to do any of that. And the effective people who communicate to me in Japanese, in Chinese, in French, in German, the people I communicate effectively to in French and German and Japanese and Chinese are the people where I let them know the number of points I'm giving them, the name of each point I'm giving them, and what I expect them to do as a result of hearing that point. And then you can rehearse it at the end of the meeting or the encounter, where you say to the person who's been talking to you, okay, as I understand it, you want 3 things to happen as a result of this discussion. Number 1, you want me to do this. Number 2, you promised to do this. And number 3, you want me to get George to do that. Those 3 things. Am I right? Is that what we agreed on? See, you don't need grammar for that. And so how to speak effectively without grammar is a tremendous course, and that totally multiplies your communication effectiveness by 100. Effective language without grammar. Number 12, educating mind extensions and not minds. All of our lives in schools, what we stuff in our brains is checked and graded and evaluated, and that isn't what makes us intelligent. What makes us intelligent is tools outside of our brain that enormously amplify what our tiny brains can do. And so file systems we have, and personal libraries we develop, and networks of friends who perform editing and news and informing and inspiring and other cognitive functions for us. And the cognitive architecture of our room, the cognitive architecture of our furniture, the cognitive architecture of our apparel, those make us smart. Those are never educated, never improved, never examined, and never graded by schools. And so the thing that makes us intelligent is completely ignored by all the schools and colleges of the world. And what I do is I grade those and develop those in each course I teach. So educating mind extensions, not just brains. Number 13, the computational nature of mind. Your mind, the universe, are all information systems with similar operands and similar operations. And understanding yourself and your career and your team and your company and your goal as an information system opens incredible doors for effectiveness compared to people who are unaware of the information system nature of that. The computational nature of self, of mind, of work, of aim is one of the deepest metaphors for getting into how we operate in the present day. Number 14, theory powers. Theory determines where we direct our attention in life. And we can notice things because of a theory that we never noticed or saw at all without that theory. So that people who have a lot of theories very abstract ones, and diverse ones see and notice more than people who have fewer theories, more concrete theories, with less diversity. In effect, the theoretician with a lot of diverse theories lives in a bigger world every minute of the day, notices more in every situation every minute of the day, has more alternatives they can do every minute of the day. It's an incredible multiplier, just totally different levels of effectiveness. And deciding to become a theoretician with a huge, diverse, large, abstract repertoire of models just multiplies what you can notice far beyond your peers and competitors. Number 15, career powers. And this is about the career that ideas have, the careers that people like you and I have, the careers that technologies have. And it's the science of finding and inventing paths through the reality and the jungle stuff of life. And career powers are the managing of these paths, and tools for managing these paths, and tools for spotting these paths, and tools for generating new paths, and tools for blending and mixing paths, accelerating along paths, keeping paths pure and undistorted. And there's a whole set of tools for these. And if you interview, as I have, the people with the 150 most interesting careers, 100 people who were nominated as having very interesting careers, if you interview them about what makes their careers interesting and how they manage to get interesting careers like that, get those traits in their careers, you find very particular tools. It's one of my books, or actually several of my papers now. And then number 16, complexity theories, new ways to lead. And this has to do with a change of common sense from mechanosense, steel is strongest, to biosense. Bone is stronger because bone knows where it's stressed and it grows and deposits more calcium where it's more stressed. And bone knows where it's broken and fixes it and heals itself where it's broken. Steel doesn't do either of those. We're now trying to create forms of steel that can do that. But it's a different idea of excellence, a biologic set of goals everywhere we're aiming at, rather than a mechanical set of goals of the Newton era that we're aiming at. So biosense is replacing mechanosense. Harvard and MIT both have 3 biology departments each now, and 1 physics department each. So biology is the new common sense and the new paragon of what to aim for in everything we do. And then complexity theory is really the process of acting in biological ways on the world and evolutionary ways on the world, as opposed to design imposing my design on you and the world.